Well, it almost got asinine, but you can wipe the sweat off your brow. The Pittsburgh Pirates return from their brief COVID break, which ended up being a blessing in disguise in a weird way for the Pittsburgh baseball team, as they end up with a pretty big victory and their offensive bats come alive. The Pirates winning game one of this 4-game set against the Cincinnati Reds here in their first game after that series was canceled against St. Louis here. 9-6 Pirate victory, 9 runs, 11 hits. Another goose egg in the error column, which has been underrated this season. They've had at least one in there most of those games. Back-to-back games now with 0 in that error column. The Reds 6 off 12 and 0 errors, and that was definitely close because Cincinnati came back there towards the end, even with a home run in the 9th, but nothing doing. And the Pirates now moving to 4-13, despite still only winning 2 out of their last 12. I'm Mike Asti, your host here, as always, on the Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. And for this edition, and it is only the second win that I personally hosted, and I've hosted about 90% of these, as he asked me prior to us going on air, is my friend and colleague, Matt Farago, who you may know from many different places. You may know from public address announcing for the Harlem Globetrotters, really a broadcaster in general for the Harlem Globetrotters for several years, traveling the world. You may know him from the illustrious and where I believe I'm a Hall of Famer myself, Champ Sports Network, covering the high school sports scene across Western Pennsylvania and beyond. You may know him from Froggy, from The Pickle. You may know him from anywhere else that he can tell you that you can potentially hear him as we go about this. But Matt, thanks for joining me, man.
Yeah, the post-game show's over, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for that intro, Mike. It's always special to hear when a Hall of Famer thinks he's a Hall of Famer. So the committee is still working. I think you need to be outside of Champs for 25 years before you get in. It's a very, very elite class.
Okay, so then in other words, you're not even in there then.
That's correct. No, I'm not. I'm not. I don't know that I am an MVP of Champs.
Well, I'm glad that you're gonna be strict with it and you're not just gonna raise everybody's banner. But as I did discuss on a past post-game show here with a maybe fellow Hall of Famer, I think I'm worthy.
Josh is fringe at best.
We'll let you decide. All right. Well, Matt, we did get a victory here out of this one, and it was after a little break there because of COVID. So the Pirates were able to, get their mind right. They're able to maybe talk to their family. I actually suggested on the last postgame show that for that team, just get away from baseball. No practice. Don't even talk about baseball with your friends. Just get out of it and then hopefully start another quarter of the season here, even though it's a shorter one, in a better frame of mind, and maybe that will lead to playing better. They do get a victory 9-6. Their bats come alive. They come alive early. They give a lot of run support to Trevor Williams, who threw up a gem last start of 7 innings. Only goes 5 this one, but able to get the victory. He didn't last time, so that shows you the life of a starting pitcher. He gets the run support finally that he's not been able to get in recent games. But then the offense tails off. The bullpen almost collapses again. The Reds do come back despite not being able to fully finish that comeback, and the Pirates get the win. In terms of the offense to this point, do you think we're finally seeing the potential of this offense? Because we know what happened Sunday before the break. That was rough, but 3 out of the last 4 games, this offense has not only performed, but has actually exploded. You're going back to last Friday with all those runs. They weren't victories, but the offense has showed up. Prior to that, the offense was just sleeping through the season. These batting averages are still barely over 200 with what they've done recently. Or is it maybe also a happy dose of the Reds pitching, which is clearly their Achilles heel to this point?
I think it's a combination of the both. I don't think you could say that it's just the Pirates hitting. Though I think coming into this year, we all had that expectation of, if the Pirates were going to be successful this year, they were going to do it with the offense, which is kind of ironic the way that the Pirates have been successful in years past, or marginally successful. But we knew that the offense was going to be where the Pirates were going to flow through this year. And we were just going to hope and pray that the pitching was going to be able to figure itself out, mainly the bullpen. But I think, starting pitching, I was hoping for more from Trevor Williams today. 91 pitches in 5 innings, giving up 3 runs, just 4 Ks. Not exactly what would you call Mr. Efficient to this point. And then ironically, he gets the win. And I said it in the second inning. I actually tweeted about it, previewing this very show, that we were either going to be talking about a very successful 4th win for the Pirates, or talking about how it just self-imploded, and they got awfully close to getting that self-implosion. Thankfully, 9 runs was enough. And I was just, in any other year, in any other team, you would think 9 runs would be enough.
Right.
And I wouldn't have put money on the Pirates winning the game, even in the second inning when it was 9-0. I don't know that I'm that comfortable. And we even saw Keone Kela back from his injury and gives up a home run. Obviously, he still was able to do well. So, but you also got to keep in mind, Kela's going to be coming in these games with a 1, a 2, a 3-run lead, and that dinger is going to mean a lot more in that situation than it did tonight. Luckily for the Pirates, it didn't.
Yeah, and you probably also thought to yourself, and you have the most asinine host potential well to add into that.
I did have that thought.
I'm doing this with Mike Asti of all people.
So. That would have been the worst possible game. Your best game. You would have been in the Hall of Fame for this post-game show had the Pirates blown this lead. But luckily for me and for the listeners and viewers, we get to actually talk about the 4th win of the Pirates season.
Yeah. That's Matt Farago. I'm Mike Asti here. The Pirates do pick up their 4th win of the season, now 4-13. But as I said on the last one of these, especially after the brief COVID break there, maybe you go about this. Derek Shelton kind of goes about this with his young team almost like an NFL head coach, where he says that's the first quarter of the season. Obviously, we didn't perform. This is now the second quarter. We're 0-0 in my eyes, and we'll see what happens here in the future. So now 1-0 in this second quarter of things. 9 runs off 11 hits for the Pirates, 6 off 12 for Cincinnati. Again, Pittsburgh now 4-13 on the year. And Matt, you kind of already alluded to this, but you have the recent start of 7 innings not getting the victory, as annoying as that had to have been for Trevor Williams, because we also talked about this on recent shows that Musgrove couldn't really get past 5. You talk about that Holland start, but he's not a guy who's going to be a part of the future of this team. In terms of pitchers that can be leaders for this team, Trevor Williams going 7 is almost the only one that he can say in the locker room, I did this, follow me, I'm going to take us through 7 innings, win, lose, or draw. He didn't get far enough here today, didn't have his best stuff, does get the win. What are your thoughts on Trevor Williams as evaluating him individually? Because he is somebody that he's vocal on social media. He's very popular amongst the fans. He's getting more action this year because of the injuries. He's going to be probably a part of the future, but it's been absolutely a roller coaster ride to say the least.
It has been a roller coaster ride. And you know what? It's like this whole season for the Pirates. How much do you read into certain things and certain players? Because as Shelton has shown that he has very short leashes on a lot of their pitchers, keeping people, they're trying to keep people from getting injured. And he has shown, whether or not we're willing to accept it or not, but that white flag, the proverbial white flag of he's going to look at what he has and trying not to necessarily put a guy in a situation where he's overthrowing. Now, 91 pitches, you'd think that if you just look at that stat, that Trevor went at least 7, 8, or 9 today. But a lot of pitches, I mean, Cincinnati was fouling a ton of pitches off. And I think that he was aggressive after the 9-run lead. You should be in that situation, but Cincinnati was doing a good job of fighting a lot of pitches off. The one thing that stuck out to me today from Trevor was that we couldn't figure out whether it was a cutter or I don't know what he was throwing. I'd never seen that from him.
He's trying something new.
Yeah, he clearly is. And I mean, it's a great thing. I don't know if it's a cutter. The broadcast guys were talking about it. Yeah. I don't know if it's cutter, a changeup. It's not a slider. It really doesn't have much backspin on it at all, but it was it wasn't from what we are used to seeing from him.
Right.
And it's a good thing if he is working on it, that maybe a guy, a flamethrower like him that can get that change of speed pitch down. And maybe Trevor is treating this, I'm sure he's not going to admit to this, but maybe he is treating this more like a spring training season and working on things. And that would incline the 91 pitches, trying something instead of going for that typical K pitch. He's going to try something new. Well, right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, we still want to see W's and see efficient pitching, but I'm afraid to do this to really any of the guys that are going to be here beyond next year, to really evaluating him in this season for all of those reasons, because this isn't going to be a typical season for the Pirates. It has shown that way. And in the situations that they have had good offense, they haven't had good pitching.
Yeah.
And when they've had good pitching, they haven't had any offense. It's gone that way to this point in the season for the Pirates.
Well, that's almost like a Pittsburgh sports thing. That really happens across the board with every Pittsburgh sports team around, or really even in the region. So, yeah, that's definitely been the case for sure. And it is hard to evaluate any player this year. I even argued it, to be fair, it's hard to evaluate Derek Shelton as a rookie manager.
No question. And I think he's taken a lot of flack early. And
yeah,
I do believe, there's a lot, don't get me wrong, in regular baseball, the regular baseball world, there has been a few more than a few questionable calls.
Right.
But at the same time, again, I don't know that he's going to make them in a 162 game season. And in a perfect world, I don't know that Derek Shelton would have preferred to have all of the veteran players that he has on his bench right now versus getting the young guys an opportunity to play, had he known that this was going to be a 60 game season, not 162.
Well, I got to do what I always do here, especially after they started losing, to remind you, August 31st, trade deadline. So a lot of those players, I'd imagine, will be off the team. And then I'd imagine in September, which actually is when the schedule, after some early divisional games, it does get a little easier. If you're going to try to predict when the Pirates could maybe get a series win, there's that one against the Royals that some are pointing to. That's in September. So if you get those veterans traded, you have maybe some more favorable or at least common opponents. We can really see some crazy managing, and maybe it's really just trying new pitches, almost playing spring training baseball and seeing how it goes here. Again, Matt Farago, I'm Mike Asti here. Pirates win 9-6 on the Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. And Matt, I might also have to maybe break you off or take you to a beer or whatever money's churned from this video, because I do see that you have brought some fans. And I don't know, maybe this is because of a win, because we've also had a roller coaster ride in terms of chatters, as you could imagine. I've had a lot in some of the games, but then there's others where not so much. This one, though, we got some activity. I will say we got this Fargo guy rocks, I'd imagine, from Kyle. I'll give that a read. We won Fargo as well in there. Prior to that, though, holy crap, we actually won a game. That's interesting there. Somebody actually does ask a semi-serious question, or even if they're not meaning to be serious, I'm going to ask you, if you could put your hat on to going back to the past, and it does play into this season because this is why the starting rotation is the way it is now, and it goes to Chris Archer. He is obviously not here this season. It's not because they have shipped him out of town. It's because he's injured and he couldn't compete this season. However, his Pirate tenure has not been what maybe would have thought, or at least certainly not what he was in Tampa Bay. He was brought aboard a couple years ago when they were playing meaningful August baseball games, and then he's just not been the same guy since. We got a couple questions here in terms of evaluating that trade now. I guess, how much has that trade affected this team currently constructed and even the future? Because that trade, it's really a fact that hasn't worked out, but how has that played into what you're seeing now? Because it's a starting rotation where a lot of these guys should not be put into a role where they're expected to be the 1 or 2 in Musgrove and Williams, but they are this year.
I mean, yeah, it's easy to say that it didn't work out now because it didn't work out now. I mean, It's easy to say that. And I mean, we could spend time talking about it, but at the end of the day, that hierarchy, those front office people are no longer here. Probably because it didn't work out that way. So, I mean, you know, we could cry about it all we want. The reality is that is baseball. I think that it makes it the most unique of the sports because those moves mean so much. And, you know, it could have worked out for the Pirates in the other way. It has worked out for the Pirates in the other way. When you bring a guy in back to the A.J. Burnett days, that didn't look like a great move back in those days, but it ended up turning out to be one. You have the pluses and minuses of those moves. And the reality is, at least in my opinion, yes, horrible move by the Pirates, no question about it. But the reason why it is a horrible move, they've already addressed it. Those people are no longer getting paid by the Pirates. So at this point, I would look ahead to see what Ben and those guys are going to be able to do in the front office, because I think looking at what they have currently and what they need in the future, you know, these next drafts are going to be vital to the Pirates being able to be contenders in the next handful of years. And I think we need to look ahead more than we look behind in that sense, just because we're not going to be able to redo it.
No, and that's absolutely a fair point. However, it also is a little unfortunate that if you're going to get anything out of this weird, funky season that's pretty much meaningless in a way of trying to contend this year for the Pirates, even with an expanded playoff field, those pipe dreams that maybe they'd squeeze in clearly are gone. But it's unfortunate you don't have Chris Archer to actually pitch this year. This is the one year I'd like to see him in a Pirate uniform, because I'd like to see him. There's no way to lose further. If he goes out there and pitches anywhere halfway decent, you get something for him in a trade.
No.
If not, you're back to square one where you already are with him. So now they're basically just wasting him. They can't even get value back, because
and
now
this
you
is
are
where the Pirates have had some bad luck lately. I
Right.
would love to have a flamethrower in the bullpen that is not only not on the Pirates roster, but not able to be out with the general public
I was
anymore.
going to say. Yes.
And he's in a whole different kind of pen, if you get what I'm saying.
I would do.
And I tell you, well, I guess we went to sleep. They turned the lights out on me back at PNC
Well,
Park.
no fans were going to sleep in this one. The Pirates actually entertained you. I'll tell you that.
That's right. They actually 100% did. Although 9 runs in 2 innings, they had 9 hits in 2 innings and finished with 11 hits. Like, normally when you get that offensive output, you get excited about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's definitely a concern. Well, before we get to the rest of the questions there, as you fix your screen there behind you as we get Matt off camera to fix that one. Again, Matt Farago here, Mike Asti. The Pirates do get a victory, only their 4th of the season. But I will say, if you had to get a win, this might be, I don't want to say most important, but in a way, maybe most important win of the season. I get that it's against the Reds, who were only a couple games above 500 themselves. They're a similar franchise, a similar market. They have a little bit more talent coming in, but they're not going to really do that much more in terms of winning either. However,
they were expected to. This was going to be the Reds' sneaky season, remember?
Yeah,
I
don't know.
Where those people go?
I know. I didn't buy into that, because if you notice, all of the sexy picks were all on the offense, like they've been for the Reds for 30 years, but none of them have ever been on the starting rotation. They would have won more with Griffey and Dunn there if they ever got a pitcher, but I'll digress.
Yeah.
You get to this point, you beat a team like the Reds, you have a big lead early on, and then you hold on, and that's really holding on for dear life, and you end up with a victory. But it's important in the way that it's the first time they get a victory in game 1. So we got a game 1 of a series win. It's a 4-game series. It's unfortunate this isn't 3 games, because they would really have a leg up to win a series. That's been a big question. Will they ever win a series? They have game 1. So now, I mean, splitting it would not counting as a win, but now 2 more, and they get this series to be their first win of the season with a hard schedule coming up. And it's after that break, so maybe it's a sign of things to come. Again, before we get to the rest of the questions there on the chat, 3 up, 3 down. We've had some trouble not repeating ourselves to this point, but that's because we've had so many losses. So again, you're fortunate to come off of a victory here. It's a 4-13 team, but it's a victory after the break. It's a win in game 1 of a series. So I'm going to throw it out there that one of my ups for sure, and it continues to be, is Eric Gonzalez. He is seemingly an underrated bright spot of this team this year. So many of the stars struggled the first few weeks. Yes, the offense picked it up recently. Bell able to get on base more often, not striking out every other at bat. You're seeing more from Frazier. Newman with the big hit for the extra inning winner. You're seeing Moran getting a couple hits again, offensively picking it up, kind of been the best slugger. for the Pirates to this point. But Eris Gonzalez has been a consistent hitter for about a week or so now. I'm glad he's getting more playing time. I don't care if he has a legit position or not. I want to see him in the lineup. He got to be there as long as he's hitting like this. So that's for sure one of my ups, that Eris Gonzalez was able to get another base knock and actually 2 doubles in the game. So 2 extra base hits. That's big for a guy that came into Pittsburgh with a lot of hype, did not deliver to this point, but has been delivering this year, even though it has not led to wins. 2 more ups for you. And I mean, they won, so you got to have some.
They did win.
Yes.
And I think that it might be a simple one, but I think the way, and Pirates fans that have followed this season will have to agree, I think anyway, that the bullpen did not blow this game. Technically, they didn't. They gave up 3 runs, but inevitably the bullpen was able to hold serve. They had a 6-run advantage, and they were able to hold it. And I think that should be something to hang your hat on, because it's just been such an atrocious run. So it's a good thing because it's been such a bad thing for one of my ups. And then I'm going to give another up to Colin Moran. You mentioned him, 2 more RBIs today.
Yeah.
He's been fun to watch. I just, for as many people I thought coming into this year of, oh, we got to watch Colin Moran again. And like, he's really played like a big time third baseman should, or wherever they end up sticking him, whether it's third or first or putting him in the DH spot, wherever they end up sticking him, he's been able to contribute. And he hasn't been a liability defensively either. And that's something that had been talked about in the past as well. So I'm happy that he's doing well. And maybe he starts potentially getting some looks around the deadline the way that he's been playing.
Well, we're going to get there in a moment, because that's pretty much the rest of the questions there in the chat. And those are legit ups for sure. In terms of down, though, obviously they won the game. That's great. They won game 1 of a series. That's great. They won after the COVID break. That's great. And they now are a little bit approaching respectability, and we'll see what their final win total is. Hoping to maybe get to 20, I would imagine, is somewhat of a goal for that club. We'll see, with about 40 games left here. 4-13, though, on the year. The first quarter of the season clearly did not go well. And by the way, I could even throw Stallings in there as an up for a 4th up, just for the fact that we know who his father is, and we know maybe his popularity in the city of Pittsburgh. It's been brought up before. I actually will say this, Matt, that it's kind of funny. I feel like fans and media together are being mature with him. I'm not seeing his father brought up on broadcast, brought up on Twitter during games. There's no memes or jokes. People are leaving him alone. They're saying, okay, he's gone. He's no longer that coach of Pitt. We're going to let it go.
He reminds me of the kid in high school that his father was the principal, and everybody hated the principal. Right. And like, you just kept bringing it up, and then the kid just ended up being an okay guy. So you just like, it's all right.
You can be friends with him. He's cool. Yeah.
You can be, it's fine. It's okay.
Yeah. That's kind of the situation here. They're not bringing up the father. They're not bringing up Kevin Stallings, the former Pitt head coach. And they're letting his son carve his own niche here. And this is the reason why he's an up. He's so great defensively, and that's been said since the minors. It's been said for years. I talked to people who covered the Pirates years ago, even in the minor league system. They just rave about him defensively. So if he can get a hit or two, and he went 1 for 3 today with a run scored, then that's legitimizing him in this lineup, because he's so great defensively, can command the stabs. You can't have somebody who's going to go 0 for every single day, even though you don't expect tons out of a catcher. But if he can get a hit or two every other game, that keeps him in the lineup, and that is the case today. As far as the downs, though, you mentioned the bullpen as an up because they didn't blow it, and they went to Howard, Rodriguez, Keller in there, who maybe tried to blow it towards the end there with 1 run off of 2 hits allowed in his 1 inning in the 9th. I got to have the bullpen be a down, because the bullpen almost blew this game again. The bullpen made this as close as it was, and the Reds, all their runs were late. The Pirates, all their runs were early. That's the bullpen. Another down potentially for me is a guy that, as much as people are mentioning, and I did, the offense is finally picking it up. The offense is hitting better. They're back to kind of where they used to be, even if the wins aren't there. That's what you want to see. And we are seeing that now from Bell, Moran, from Frazier, from Newman. We're not seeing it, though, from Reynolds. We're not seeing it from Polanco. Polanco hitting .94, Reynolds hitting 179. I'm not expecting Reynolds to set the world on fire and be a double machine that he was in his rookie campaign when no one would have expected that. But you got to get more than this. This is not even respectability to this point. You got to hit 200 in a month of baseball. I don't care what level it is. Polanco even worse than that, even though he's recovering from COVID and then missing some more games early on this year. So they're two downs. Any other downs for you?
Gerard Dyson. Ever since he started coming to Pittsburgh and saying that, well, there was no other option. That doesn't excite me. He should know better, being an MLB veteran, not to say, even though it might be what you're thinking, it certainly shouldn't be what you're saying. And to me, he reminds me of that little leaguer that was picked on the team he didn't want to be on. And you could tell every time he strikes out, he just doesn't have that I'm playing baseball for a living type mentality. And to me, once you don't have that, Neil Walker's batting like 106 and playing first base for the Phillies right now, but he doesn't have that attitude that I deserve to be playing somewhere better. Then go prove it. You're play well. Maybe you will go play somewhere better this year. He's just been, he frustrates me to watch. There's just no hustle in his game. And doesn't protect well when he gets behind in counts. He's just been so frustrating all year round. To me, they need to ship him off, but I don't know what they could even get for him, so they won't.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate thing, because really Pittsburgh, if you can't be on a legit contender to start a season, Pittsburgh's not a bad place to be, especially in a reduced season, because there are many players who can tell you play well, the Pirates will trade you, and luck of the draw, you usually end up on a pretty good team. There's a streak of Pirate trade options getting on the pennant winner. So It could have worked out for him if he actually would have handled things maturely, but that's not the case. And, we in media here, you like when somebody's honest and they provide you an honest answer. It makes this more fun, but yeah, it doesn't help him personally. And it doesn't really help the team here. Matt Farago, Mike Asti here. Pirates getting the victory 9-6, fourth win of the year, now 4-13, despite still only 2 out of their last 12. This is the first one after the COVID break. So we're going to have more of these Pirate post-game shows coming out throughout the weekend. We got 3 more against the Reds, the Indians, Milwaukee, the White Sox, and then Milwaukee again. So I'm not sure when they can get that first series win. Matt, I do want to finish things out here on the chat. And we have several people watching that haven't chatted yet. I don't know if they're your friends or not. They feel free, can still jump in. Maybe I will throw one more out there.
You might not want to say that, Mike, depending on who it is.
Well, that's true. Well, I don't have to read it, and
that's fair. That's also
I can hide the chat. I will also tell as a warning that we have the restrictions pretty high up here. So if you swear or insult anybody, YouTube actually will take it off, so I don't even have to worry about it. So it won't
that's nice.
Yeah,
I'm sure we're missing all of the ones that are insulting me.
Or me. Every now and then I do have to scroll around lunch break and go through and take some comments off occasionally. But yeah, YouTube likes to flag them for me now, so we don't normally have to worry about that. Basically, this question just comes out of from Z Heller 3. I don't know if that's a friend of yours or not. But
this might be.
Okay, but regardless, anyone you see the Bucks trading before the deadline? So that's a serious question in terms of who are the Pirates most likely going to deal, and who are the players that they can get something for, because that is really 2 different questions that I'm going to add on to his question there.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to what we were just talking about I'm sure there's people that the Pirates are willing to trade, but the question is, are they going to get what they want for them in a trade? And I think therein lies the answer to what's going to happen. I'm sure that they want to shop Gregory Polanco. What can you get for a guy who isn't hitting over 100 right now? That sounds like the beginning of a joke, Mike. But it's a reality. And I know that there's a fact that they want to look at what they can get for Josh Bell. That's the reason why he hasn't been always the DH for the Pirates. And they want to see what they want, at least to show that he still has the glove. If a team is interested, I think any team that is interested, he's going to be the DH. But those are the types of situations. And I don't know. I'm fine with the Gregory Polancos, and even if Colin Moran, if they could get something half decent for Colin Moran, because I think Moran could really help a team that's contending this year, be that guy that comes off the bench that fills in a spot start here and there, comes off the bench with the bat. I really think that he could be one of those guys for a contender. Is the price right for what they're going to get for them? I would be very wary of getting rid of Kella potentially. I just don't know if the Pirates can handle getting rid of any more pieces of the bullpen. Obviously, there's not many that are worth much beyond him, but I think that's the big question. Is the Pirates obviously are going to be sellers in this market, but is the market going to condone what they're going to get? Because the reality is this front office staff, going back to what we were talking about earlier, they don't want to get in the same situation that previous staffs have get in,
Right.
not getting what they are worth in the long run. So I would be cautious about what you could get back in return. And if that means that a guy has to stick around for, obviously the contract guys, you want to ship off before you get nothing for them, but you would like to get something more than a sack of baseballs, which is what the Pirates have gotten in many of those deals in the past.
Yeah, it almost seemed like whoever was in charge, that almost seemed destiny to have the trade not work out for Pittsburgh. And we will see what they can get for some of these guys. Again, they're not really making it easier on the Pirates because I would say almost the entire roster, except for Eric Gonzalez, who you're not going to be moving, I'd imagine, the value is lower than where it would have been 2 months ago when we were in the midst of not playing games. Unfortunately, they've done nothing but actually
more bad luck for the Pirates. Like, this is the perfect opportunity. You only have so many games. All someone has to do is get on a hot streak for 2 weeks,
right,
and they're going to be contending to be traded, and they've dropped an egg. Even the fact that the Pirates offense has been halfway decent recently, they haven't been able to put together the people that
right,
and the players that they want to ship off. Those haven't been the guys to step up. Kind of just another dose of tough irony for the Pirates.
Yeah, the only advantage now, though, and this maybe plays into what we don't know about the future, but off of some predictions that maybe finally we're going to see the DH universally permanently in Major League Baseball like it is this season. That's a rule I wouldn't mind seeing, but that's a possibility. And if that is, that helps the market for Josh Bell. Whereas in prior seasons, because he is not the best defensively, you're most likely trading him to the American League. And that opens up the door pretty much to every team. Yeah. And I do feel like with Josh Bell, despite now struggling even to the end of last season, just the fact that there is so much pop in his bat, somebody who's a solid hitting coach could maybe talk to him and get him to strike out a little bit less. And that could really be a major boost to a team. And that might be the only guy that maybe a team would be interested in bringing in at this trade deadline that's not just for this season. Like Colin Moran could be great for a playoff run this year in our weird postseason, but Bell might be somebody that somebody would trade for and say, oh, I'm going to try to actually re-sign him in the offseason. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And there's also the contingent of teams that just believe the Pirates don't know how to teach hitters.
Right.
And they think they can get a hold of Josh Bell and figure it out. And you can have a Jose Bautista type situation on your hands.
Yeah, that was a situation to say the least. Yeah, he became one of the most entertaining players in all of baseball, actually, eventually. After it was many years later, to be fair. But yes, he was a former Pirate.
He had to get the coaching. He had to get the coaching.
He had to learn the bat flip.
I feel like I'm taking some of your your negative energy and using it against the Pirates tonight, even though we won. It feels like we lost.
Yeah. No, it's going to feel like that, fair or not to me. That's going to feel like that when you hold on with a 3-run victory after you have 9 through 2. It's 9-6. Again, Pirates 9 off 11, the Reds 6 off 12. Pittsburgh now 4-13 on the year. So looking ahead now, Matt, you got the Reds for 3 more. You got Cleveland. You have Milwaukee, the White Sox, Milwaukee. Then you flip the page to the next month. You're going to see the Cubs. You're going to see the Cardinals. You're going to see eventually the Royals in there, I think a couple series later. Then a lot of the repeats of the same because of the way they're configuring the schedule here with COVID. What do you expect moving forward in terms of this team has played better recently? They're obviously not a contender. This may change depending on who you can trade at the deadline because some of those games are after that deadline and those players are going to be gone. But what do you expect in terms of the level of play the rest of the season? And how should fans really watch these games? We talked about it at the top of the program that as much as you want to win, and it's hard to tell any fan, even an intelligent one, you don't care about a victory here today because innately as a fan, you want your team to win. But is there a time where fans almost need to learn how to evaluate individual players, only care about that? And if Bell goes 2 for 3 with a couple homers and they lose by a run with the bullpen collapsing, you could say, well, that's actually an okay day because now his value is higher. Is there now having to be a different way to watch? And what do you think of the rest of the season now with that schedule?
Yeah, if you're a long-term Pittsburgh Pirates fan, and I don't think anyone jumped on the Pirates bandwagon this season.
No,
so
everybody in the chat
all are.
Yeah, that's right. It's got to be long-term. Anyone.
So you need to think long-term. So yeah, I think you should be rooting for Josh Bell to hit some dingers and maybe make the throw to second base once, just so we know he can do it. Yeah, I think that there should be those types of things. Continue to root for those guys that can be the ones that we named, and maybe a few underneath that that can get shipped off, that we can get that younger talent in, and maybe start rebuilding that bullpen that has been so terrible to this point in the season. There's just no other way to. There's just no other.
I bring out the bluntness in you. You can't even put lipstick on the pig when I'm.
No, absolutely no. I don't think no. You can't. And I have tried with the Pirates, and I'm optimistic that I don't think that this was a throwaway season for me, and I don't know how. I understand from a PR standpoint you can't necessarily say that, but even the over casual baseball fan can understand what we're trying to do here. Let Shelton see what he has and what he doesn't have. He's obviously getting to see that a guy like Gonzalez can play. Can he sustain it past 2 or 3 weeks? We're going to find that out. I would cheer for a guy like him just as much as I would cheer for a guy like Josh Bell. Obviously, we want to get rid of Josh Bell and get some younger talent in there. But a guy like Gonzalez, we want him to potentially be one of the cogs that runs this wheel in a couple years, and hopefully the Pirates can turn things around in a couple years. But you got to give it some time. You got to give Shelton some time. As I've said this a few times, talking about the Pirates this year, we cannot Cleveland Browns this and blow it up after a year or two over and over and over again. You need to give this. That's why I think it was the right move to get rid of everybody in the same year, because now we did start from scratch. And this year is just that feeling out, whether we win 10 games or 20 games, it was a 60-game season. We didn't have to, I look at it as a positive. We didn't have to go through a 162-game series with this team. With this team. That would have been an absolute nightmare, other than, we all would have been able to have our Permanis and see pierogi races and fireworks, which is the reason half the people come to the ballpark now. Yeah. But the reality is we need to look ahead with this team and be optimistic that the people that were put in their spots can make some decisions and make some moves that is going to make this ball club better going forward. And that's the optimistic approach that you need to have if you're a Pirates fan. If not, we might be looking at another run of 20 losing seasons. And I guess you can have that opinion too.
Yeah, and that was what somebody asked. Maybe you can talk to him after the show, because they asked you to predict when exactly the next winning season would be. We'll see. I don't know if I won't force you to have to go on record with that one right now.
4 years.
Okay. Now, the unfortunate thing is, I think that's very reasonable, but the unfortunate thing is, as much as I want to give Derek Shelton some time, and you certainly can't can him after this year, and it's not fair to him, he probably won't be here 3 or 4 years from now. So if that's the next winning season, he's probably not going to experience it, but maybe we'll get some retrospective credit if that does happen. We'll see. I also do agree with you, and we've said this before on past shows, that this season is a weird blessing in the fact that even if they go ahead and only win 10 games, as bad as it could be, in 20 years from now, when they're looking at the worst teams in baseball history, very few are probably going to bring up the 2020 Pirates, because they're going to say COVID, they're going to say no fans, they're going to say it was 60 games. If it was 162 and they honestly only won 40 some or 50 some, then you would be in that conversation of some of those teams that have been really, really bad throughout baseball history. And the Pirates are part of that in many of those. Look at 2010 and some of those other years. So it could have been one of those seasons had it been a full trek of a year. Not the case. So they almost were saved from that. Chad Kuhl versus Sonny Gray. So that's going to be an interesting matchup. Sonny Gray, a former phenom. He's not been able to get back to where he was 2 or 3 years ago with the Oakland A's. He's not really been able to turn the corner since that trade to the Yankees. We'll see. He's been pitching better to this point this year with a 2.25 ERA than where he was even a year ago. And then, of course, Chad Kuhl, who is coming off some solid performances, but we will see what he does as a starter. Not normally a guy that can get you deep into games. So we will see if they have to do a makeshift bullpen quality start with 3 guys again scenario, because that's probably the road we're going down with this Chad Kuhl start for a Friday.
Yeah, and I think the thing about the Pirates and kind of having short leashes on our starters is really it almost exacerbates the problem that we've had because the bullpen is so bad.
Right.
You put a short leash on your starters. You take a guy out that was scheduled to go only 3 innings and broke when he had a perfect game going after 3 innings. You take him out, but he was scheduled to go 3 innings. So you take him out, and that's the way it goes. But I think that it's almost one of those bad luck catch-22 moments on the Pirates really do need to want to see what the starters can do. But Derek Sheldon has proven that leash is very short for a lot of them. Obviously, Keller, kind of those guys, really hasn't ever been expected to go deep into games. And I can't expect him to be going deep, even if he is having a good outing, which is kind of a bummer to see because you'd like to see guys go 6-7 innings and give these guys an opportunity to win, because the way the Pirates are going to win this year is outscoring another team. They're not going to do it with pitching. We've already proven to this point.
Yeah, and you would have actually thought, and maybe it didn't prove to be the case because they almost blew this game, but with 9 runs already on the board, even though Trevor Williams did allow a few and was starting to lose his stuff, I maybe would have just dangled him out there in the 6th to see what happens if he can fight it out of it. Because the Pirates still had a 5-run lead at that point. But
yeah, I don't disagree with you as far as the innings. I think it was all pitch count, 91 pitches in 5 innings. You got to pull them at that point. And that, again, going to what Derek Shelton has done to this point, I thought 91 was pretty generous in what he's been doing in comparison to other starters. They've been looking at 60 and 70 pitches has kind of been the average to this point. So 90 was getting up there, and probably it had something to do with the lead that he might have been able to throw him out there a little bit longer.
Yeah, either that or maybe his last start, or maybe kind of saying the message that if Trevor Williams can keep this up, maybe he'll be the leader of this staff moving forward. I know the fans would certainly love that. Again, Chad Kuhl, Sonny Gray, Pirates Reds tomorrow evening. Pirates Reds actually throughout the weekend. We'll see if they can get their first series victory. 4-13 currently right now, but that first win in game 1 of a series and first win after the COVID break. Pirates 9 runs off 11 hits. The Reds 6 off 12 with a comeback late, but the Pirates do hang on. And one thing I'd like to see from the next one, we talked about it, is Chad Kuhl. I'll put this as a very generous number. I would like to see him get through 4 innings. If he can get through 4 innings, that's at least something. I would like to see him go a little bit longer because I do like the stuff when I do see him in there. But talk about a short leash. He almost has a leash strangling him before he even gets to the mound.
It's just a collar, no leash.
Yeah, he gets like 50 pitches in most outings. It's almost like a warm-up. Regardless, that was Matt Farago. Thanks for joining me, man. Definitely appreciate it. I, of course, am Mike Asti as always. We're going to have Matt and Allen actually going to be with you. I'm going to have a weekend off here from these Pirate Postgame shows, as I've done tons to this point here. And I do see we had a few more chatters, but I'm not going to read any more chat. So, Matt, you're welcome to text your friends after the program. We're going to close off the chat. To this point here, once again, the Pittsburgh Pirates are winners. They win it 9-6, 4-13 now on the year.
I'm looking forward to that beer, Mike.
Yeah, and I will get you a beer for what we've churned to this point, man. Thanks, though.